Well, howdy folks, welcome back to the shop. So today we're going to work on this Harbor Freight bandsaw. I'm assuming it was bought from Harbor Freight years upon years ago. I don't know. I've had this saw from 15 to 18 years, and it was at my previous company that I worked at. And I don't even know how many years they had it, but the reason why they got rid of it, they upgraded to a larger saw, so they was cutting large pieces of angle aluminum, and it just would not fit in this saw, so they ended up upgrading to a larger one. And this got pushed back in the back room for, it was probably several years. And then I inquired about it and asked about it and stuff. So we cut a deal, and I was able to bring it home. So here it is. And it's been a great saw since. I've had some minor issues with it, nothing too major. The motor did burn up on me one time. So I put this motor on it, and it's seemed to work fine since. These brackets, they broke on the bottom side. They actually broke off. This in here, you can see the weld on it. So I just welded these guys back on. The knobs had broke off at one time, so I ended up buying these and putting it on. And well, there was one major issue that I did find while I was doing all this other stuff here. And what happened is this guy had cracked, and that's why the color of the paint there is different. And the crack was fairly long. It was probably 3 inches long. And then there was probably about a 1 inch shoot off from that. And so I took and, cleaned it all up, gouged it out, kind of V-notched it, drilled it, and then I brazed it all back up and grounded flush. And it seems to work fine there. So the whole point of making this video here is I would like to add a coolant system to this bandsaw. So someone had given me this pump. So it came with a pump, it came with a hose, it came with a valve and everything to control the flow of the fluid on this bandsaw. So I saw a lot of other videos out there and other people out there that made trays and stuff. And personally, I didn't really care for them. There's nothing wrong with them. I just did not like that. So, and the part of the reason is some of them didn't go the whole way across. So my thought was, well, what if you have a piece of tube or something in here and fluid cool and it's running back this way and it gets all over the floor. So I wanted a tray that goes the whole way around. So I come up with this idea to make a tray. And what's nice about this idea is you can put it on the saw or take it off the saw. I mean, it is bolted on, but it does not require any modifications to this saw at all, which is what I was really shooting for. Plus, it's a whole tray that goes underneath. So if you look at all the lathes, mills, and other bandsaws and stuff out there, they have a tray that goes the whole way around. So this is what I come up with, and yes, I already have it made. So this bolts to the base of the saw, this cast iron base here, and this goes over top of the legs. So this sandwiches in between the current saw. So if you want to stick around for dimensions, I'm going to have the dimensions towards the end here. And I kind of explain how I built this. I apologize for not having any of this filmed. And the main reason is whenever I was starting into this, I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. So I ended up folding this all off of my work and then bringing it home, tack welding it, putting it all together. So like I said, if you want the dimensioning, they're rough dimensions, but they should work good enough for you guys to figure out if you want to do something like this towards the end of the video here. So with that said, guys, why don't we get this installed and I'll show you how it actually gets installed, and hopefully it works. So we're going to put the pump on, we're going to run the tubing, put the valve on, and we'll put this on as well. So let's get started. All right, so to get this off, all there is the 6 bolts that go around. You just take those off, then this whole top will come off. Now keep in mind, this top is 90% of the way to this whole saw. This thing, the base of it is basically just sheet metal, so be careful lifting this off. I'm going to try to attempt to lift it off and set it off to the side by myself here. If you were doing it at home, I either recommend somebody else helping you or using something to lift it here. So, but that's the plan. So, I got all these bolts loose. Okay, so once you get all those bolts out, this guy here should lift off. And like I said, it's going to be heavy. But there you go. And we're just going to set that aside. All right, since we got that set over there, let's start putting our tray on. So we're just going to set him on, and it's going to be kind of hard to see, but I don't even have it set on there right, but you can see the holes line up right there and right there. And you know, with these legs being so flimsy on this thing, it's kind of a pain. So what we're going to do is we're going to start all the bolts and washers into this guy. All I'm doing is using a 1/4 bolts that are, I think they're 1 inch long or something like that. So all we're going to do is put all 6 bolts in, and we're not going to tighten them up because you see how there's an oil can type effect in it, and you can see right there it levels out. But once these are all bolted in, it'll be perfectly fine. Okay, so once you get your plate and get those 6 screws snugged up on this guy, I would recommend, you know, check your floor to see if it's level first, but I would recommend leveling this up. So what I would do is tighten these ends first, and the main reason that is pull this tin, make sure you pull it the whole way out like it's supposed to be, and it seats in the ends like it should. So and then once you get the ends snugged up, what I would do is, you know, twist it just a little bit to get where you need it to be, and then tighten your other ends of these. So I'm going to go ahead and get that taken care of, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, so we got the 6 bolts put back around, and you can see all the oil canning effect went out of it already. I knew it would. But one thing I wanted to make sure you knew is whenever you start snugging them up, I would recommend snugging these outer ones first. And then you can use those as your pivot point to make sure you're level. And also check it this way, and you can see it's perfectly level. Now, you should do this on a level floor. The garage floor here isn't actually perfect, so I checked the level with the floor, and I'm comparing that to this level here whenever I'm going this way, and it's matching the floor now. So I know that this is parallel to the floor. So with that said, guys, let's start putting the top on and see what it looks like, and you can tell it actually looks pretty good already. And boom, look at that. Wow, it looks really good. One of the things that I noticed already is I would probably recommend scooting this out some more. That is definitely not as much as I would like it to be, but it's a lot better than it was. So let's get it bolted down, and let's give it a try. All right, guys, you can see I got the tray on. Very happy with that. I struggled a little bit because this was heavy, and I had a hard time getting some of the bolts to line up, but I got everything mounted up. Everything looks great. Very happy with that. There's 3 issues that I found. I already took care of them, except for the one I'm not going to mess with. But the only thing I would like to do is extend this out if I was going to do it again. Now, if you're cutting heavier pieces or longer pieces, a lot of times you can lay a piece of tin in here, and you know, it'll help take care of some of that splash. But I did look at the bandsaw at work because I was out of curiosity, and the tray is pretty close to this anyway, so it might be fine. The thing that I did find is this handle here. Whenever it was back here, you couldn't crank it, so I ended up making an extender. The total length of that is 3 inches. This is about 1 inch, so this is pretty much 2 inches. I actually think it's 2 1/4. Give or take a little bit. I didn't really measure it. I just got it out past so I can crank it good without getting my fingers pinched or whatever. And then one of the other things that I found, and I don't know how I did this, it's my fault, but I had to bend this back here, so the motor bracket. So I forgot about the motor bracket hanging down like that. So I'm going to close that and bring you back down here, and you can see. And all I did was take and just get my pliers out and just bend that up a little bit. It won't hurt anything. It's not that big of a deal. But I would just shorten this up probably close to 1.5 inches or something like that, and then start the angle if you do it yourself. But other than that, I mean, it looks really good. I'm very, very happy with it. So with that said, let's get the hose, all the plumbing, let's get the tank on, and then let's see how it works. So the tank is pretty simple. It's just going to sit down here, and believe it or not, a little bit of force, it actually sets down in there. So I can't be more than happy with that. So the drain hose, I'm going to put a clamp on this, but it just sits underneath here and it pushes up. So it drains perfectly into there, no problem. And so the valve, I ended up making this aluminum bracket here. I could have used a piece of tin, welded it up. But the way this valve worked is you actually clamp it onto here. But it turned out really nice. So all I did was drill 2 holes here and kind of get it matched up. And I mean, it worked out really nice. So this we're just going to mount here. And then I just bent that tubing so it would go over top of the blade like that there. All right, so next thing we're going to put on is the hose. And I went ahead and drilled and tapped these holes here for the mounting for the P-clips here. And since these hose clamps are on this, I'm going to go ahead and use them. I'm not a fan of these style hose clamps, but I'm not going to complain. All right. So these are just P-clips is what they call them. And I tapped them for 1024 since I had a bunch of those screws laying around. And so we'll just go ahead and thread these in. And I might add another one back here somewhere, I'm not sure. This hose seems to be a little bit long here, but, and then we'll get him put on and clamped on. How am I going to power this? That's a question I'm sure people are wondering. Is this actually had a plug on it, and I took and modified this plug. So now this switch controls the plug that comes out here, the mating plug here. So that makes it kind of nice. So now whenever you turn this one off or this stops, the coolant stops too. Now the pump has a switch on the side of it here. So that will be nice too, because if you don't want to keep the coolant running, or you're cutting something you don't want to run coolant, you can just turn it off here. So we'll get that plugged in. And I think I'm going to get some zip ties and some plugs and stuff out. Some clamps, I mean. And after that, I think we're ready to fire it up. So let me get the coolant and everything mixed up, and we'll start making some test cuts. All right, guys. Well, look, everything's back together. The coolant's in it. I actually did some test cuts already, but we'll get into that. And everything works exceptionally well. So the coolant that I got was Solzit. It seems like it's a really good coolant. You can mix this 5 to 1, 10 to 1, or even 15 to 1 if you want. Recommended is right around 5 or 10, and that is 5 or 10 parts water to 1 part this. So this will last me a long time, unless I start using it on the other machines over there. So, but anyway, with that said, let me put a piece of material in here and show you how well it works. So I have a chunk of 2.5 inch bar stock. And since I don't want to waste a whole lot of material, we're going to take like a 1/16 inch cut. And yeah, let's turn it on here. And there you have it. Look, that's a nice clean cut. It was starting to grab there towards the end a little bit. Keep in mind, this blade that's in here it's been used quite a bit, so it's not a new blade. So it's not the greatest shape, but I will say I am very glad that I made the tray around the back side here, because I see a lot of dripping coming out of this area, and you can see a lot of the shavings are coming out back there. And the other thing I've noticed is I'm getting drips along here, and I do have a few drips along back here. So I think the tray the whole way around was a great idea, and it seems to be working great. And you can see all the shavings that are back here. So that's where a lot of the shavings are being dropped. So definitely around the back side is a great idea. So I tell you what, this has been a great project. I'm very pleased with it. Really a great addition to these bandsaws to get some coolant flow on some of this stuff for cutting, especially when you get into some nice big bar stock like this. But so with that said, stay tuned for the dimensioning and stuff on this pan. It'll be right after this here. And with that said, like guys, I appreciate you watching. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you can. And until next time, take care. All right, guys, so let's get you some dimensions in case you want to make one of these. So if you stuck around for this, that's great. You must have liked the idea, but here's a kind of a quick sketch of what it looks like, or what the dimensions are. So if you want to pause that and write that down or whatever, but there you go, there's the dimensioning of it. So basically what I wanted to tell you is, so it's 10 inches on the inside, and this here is 32.5, and this is 28. So I base everything off the center line, and like I said, you see this crease, it's down through the center here. You don't have to do that, but it does help because it actually kind of dishes it. So these edges here, these folded edges, they're 1.5 inches the whole way around. So if this is 10 inches wide in here, you have to add 3 inches to it to get your 1.5 inch lip here. So keep that in mind as well. So, and you don't have to do this dimple here. So this is the die I had made for my Plymouth to do that on the door seals, and it worked out perfectly because you can see it dimples right into that. And all I did was put that in a press and then dimple that. This tube, like I said, is 5/8. And then the angles on these is what I did is whenever I folded these edges up, I left these long, so I didn't trim any of this up. So then what I did is kind of folded them into each other, kind of like that. And then I took an angle grinder and cut down through the center of it, and then folded it, hammered it, you know, worked it, and got it close. And then whenever I got it close and the angles met, then I just tack welded that up. And these angles on this here is 45-degree angle fold up. So now these are 6 inches long by 6.5 inches wide, or 6 1/4, I'm sorry. Both of them are identically the same. 1 inch up or 1 inch down on this is about a 10-degree fold. So whenever I was at work, we have a break there, so it was easy for me to fold this all up. So what I did was, this is actually all one piece, and then I put relief cuts in the corners, and all I did with there was I kind of folded it into the U, and then I just took slid it like the angle grinder and slid it down quite a ways. I think it was an inch down, same as what these are folded. And then I just folded those 10 degrees on both sides. And then whenever I had it clamped to the base there, I took and marked these holes, and then I drilled these out. And these are weld nuts in here. You don't have to use weld nuts. You can use regular nuts, and then just tack weld them on the sides. It'll all work just the same. I would not recommend putting a full bead weld the whole way along this. And the main reason is if you see in here, you can see my pencil is sticking through a little bit. Well, that's so coolant can get down through here. And that's the same thing here. There's not much of a gap on the sides, but there's definitely here in the center on both ends to allow coolant to drip back through and go down this channel here. So, and that was the other thought is, you know, whenever I dish this also creates a channel right down to the center here. So that's pretty much it on that side. So let's flip it over here. And just real quick before I forget is, you know, this is a 5/8 tube, and the dimple here at the base is like 1 3/8, I think is what I remember measuring. And then since this had a pin in it, I put a pin in it to keep it for alignment. I just drilled a 1/4 inch hole and used that as my alignment, and then whenever I pressed that out, I just used a step drill and then drilled that out to the size of the 5/8 hole there. Now these are actually 3 pieces, and there's part of the reason for that. And the real reason is whenever you bolt it to or clamp it to the saw, it was easier for me to do it that way. Now these are 1 inch tall. This is 6 1/4, and this is almost 6 1/2. What I would recommend is whenever you make these pieces here, I would make them taller than 1 inch. And that's kind of why these welds are pretty thick and they don't look that great. I wasn't thinking ahead is whenever I crease this, you see it's real tight here in the bottom here. Well, it created gaps on all 4 or these sides here. And I wasn't thinking ahead of that. So if I was to do this again, I would make these 1 1/2. I'd probably mark 1 inch out, and then whenever I clamped it to the legs of the bandsaw, I'd probably put it and clamp it onto that inch mark, you know, get my holes drilled and all that stuff, and leave that 1/4 inch stick above, or the 1/2 inch, whatever you decide. And then what I would do is lay this tray on it, and then I would probably V this bracket here. That way it actually sits nice and flat, and you don't have these large gaps that I had. Well, with that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed explaining how I made this piece. Like I said, if you have a break, it makes it a lot easier. You can do this. I have done it in the past, but nothing this big. Is if you have some steel, preferably like a 3 or 4 inch I-beam works great. You could clamp it to it and then clamp a plate of steel on top of it and then hammer it down and use it like a brake. This steel, by the way, I failed to mention that this is 18 gauge steel. It's something I had laying around. I would recommend using something fairly heavy gauge wise. You could probably go down to a little bit lighter, but I would probably stick with 18 if you could, or a little heavier. You don't want to go too heavy because then the saw is going to get heavier than it really needs to be. But like I said, I hope you enjoy it, and please hit that like and subscribe button if you can. And until next time, take care.